Bienvenue tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. In this edition, the militia, the network of gangs holding a major world city in its stranglehold. The people of Rio are living in fear. Few believe the election in Brazil will change anything. Our reporter Fanny Lothaire has been talking to them about how their lives are being blighted by the gangsters who are taking a tighter grip on more and more parts of their lives. Fanny, tell us more about how this is affecting the people that you met.
Every time we mentioned the word militia, we could sense real hesitation. People lowered their voices. Some were even wary of saying the word militia, afraid that their neighbours might belong to one of the gangs that are growing in the shadows of a city struggling with debt and abandoned by authorities. This is a sprawling mafia network that imposes a code of silence and that keeps a close eye on those who speak out against them.
Fanny, thank you very much indeed. Fanny Lothaire. Her report starts with the anger in the favelas over the killing of a woman who campaigned for change. Let's take a look.
It's been 6 months without a response. 6 months of family members, friends, PSOL activists, and the people of Rio de Janeiro and Brazil without a response about who ordered Marielle to be killed. So we're here to demand justice.
Who assassinated Marielle Franco? Why did they kill her?
Vereadora Marielle Franco do PSOL foi assassinada agora à noite no Rio de Janeiro.
4 bullets to the head in a calculated attack. No security cameras were working at the scene of the ambush.
Como aconteceu? Uma das linhas de investigação apura o envolvimento de milicianos no assassinato da vereadora.
The militia, a criminal organization which reigns with a code of silence over Rio de Janeiro. Police officers, firefighters, and other powerful figures apply their law in northern districts of the city. Their power is immense, but invisible.
When bodies disappear, if people at least reported it, we would be able to take action.
Police Captain Barbara LOMBA BUENO is one of the few who dared to stand up to it.
In Marica, we have a main militia, and everywhere there's a militia, there's intimidation. These groups, because they are a parallel power, they can have the involvement of police. They can have guns. People are very afraid, very afraid. If a witness talks to the police about it, they could be killed.
A few months ago, in the aftermath of Marielle's killing, 5 young people were murdered here. Barbara Lombo's team suspects it was a settling of scores orchestrated by the militia. More than 50 people in the district were found with police-issue weapons after being arrested.
They made them lie on the ground and they executed them with shots to the head. It was 5 guys.
Who killed them?
The militia. People are leaving. Don't go. They're scared. Is everything calmer here?
Yes.
Is it really? Have there been any crimes like that one?
No.
And this is a nice neighbourhood. You can see from here the windows are all closed, and the crime happened in a central place. But the people who did it were not worried about hiding anything. They came with their faces uncovered. That's the level of domination that this group exerts. It's the confidence that people won't say anything. They're scared. Families helped us too to convince people to talk, and one witness was essential.
In 10 years, this is a rare case involving the militia to have been solved.
It was really quick, and I want to congratulate you guys for the work. My son was a well-known guy here. He was sociable and friendly with everyone for such a long time. This now is a relief because other families will not go through what we're going through.
It's hard. It's so hard.
I'm sorry.
It's horrible.
As part of the crime squad of NITEROI, Barbara Lombo BUENO and her team have been fighting against the militia for 3 years.
Good afternoon. All good? Tell me how the Marielle investigations are going.
They're progressing.
There are only 4 police officers to handle 250 cases.
Today, about what percentage of the homicides there do we attribute to the militia?
I think 70%.
Up to now, almost none of those have been resolved.
Often, the fact that they're police guarantees that the facts are not investigated, because they know people, because they get information about the investigations that are being done. They know. Sometimes they have a relationship with the local government. And for us, it's not good for the investigation if there are police involved.
In this university on the outskirts of Rio, Professor José Cláudio Souza has studied the militia for more than 25 years.
In the 60s, you had the death squads. In the 80s, these groups stopped being only controlled by military and civil police and start to also include killers. The militia at the beginning was like a security force. It went places where fear had already taken over. This whole area that the militia took was already plagued by fear, and fear is what makes people believe in their saviors.
Dozens of witness accounts and hours of recordings allowed him to understand the extent of their power.
The militias today are much sharper. They control areas, they sell everything. The drug gangs just sell drugs, it's something very specific. But the militia sells water, gas, clandestine TV connections, transportation networks, land to build houses, even the construction materials. So the militia has a business portfolio that's far superior to that of the drug traffickers.
A firm with a huge reach, bringing in more than 6 million euros a month. According to one study, they exert power over 2 million inhabitants.
Hoje, milicianos e traficantes estão no mesmo patamar de violência. Eles criam regras que são impostas a moradores e comerciantes na base do terror.
In this northern suburb of Rio, the militia requires a contribution from storekeepers, like this mechanic.
It works like this. They come with guns and say, "We do the security from now on." They visit the local businesses asking for a contribution. They always stay polite. And you have to have a conversation. You have to justify it, like if it were a government body. You have to justify why you can't pay if you don't have the money. If you don't have the money, they rob your shop and steal your car.
Are you afraid?
Of course I'm afraid. I don't want to die.
If you refuse to submit to their rules, watch out. For Professor Souza, the militiamen became masters in the art of making their victims disappear.
From here onwards, you're going to see massive stretches of land, as you usually see on the outskirts of cities. This is where they have their cemeteries. They also use the big rivers that cut through the region. These have always been known as the place where you throw bodies away. The bodies are referred to as hams. So when they say to get rid of the ham, it's an expression that means you'll throw the cadaver away. So this is the Bandu River. It's one of the rivers that's known for having bodies disappear. You tie it up with rocks and you throw it to the bottom. This is the same municipality where there's talk of a massacre of between 35 and 60 people. So you wonder, how you could throw 35 to 60 bodies at one time without leaving a trace.
Survivors are rare. A photographer from the newspaper O Dia infiltrated the militia from the Batã favela in West Rio. He was discovered, held hostage, and tortured. Today, he lives in hiding.
We stayed there until the 14th, when we were discovered at 9 p.m. And there, stayed for 6 or 7 hours, being tortured. All kinds of torture, with sacks, with shocks. During this time, they got our emails and discovered the information that we had sent to the newspaper. They had already set a pile of tires on fire in another favela, and all that was left to do was to take our bodies there. So, that is to say, we're the first tortured people to be alive. Now, the people that made them uneasy, it was like Marielle, right? She went to the next life. The militia have politicians behind them. There are a lot of influential people behind them. And FREIXO, if he slips up in any way, he's next.
Rio State Congressman Marcelo FREIXO was the first official to have denounced the militia's influence on urban affairs. 10 years ago, he set up an inquiry. Starting out proved difficult.
We have to confront the interests of the demons that have haunted our city for years.
I presented a request to investigate the militia in 2007. This legislative body archived it for a year. They didn't want to investigate it because a large part of the state congressmen are linked to the militias. I have received death threats. Other members did as well. People could get killed, judges, police officers, to confront the militias, to confront the mafia. When they have territorial domination, when they have economic domination, they are always a threat. At any moment, they can elect new congresspeople and influence new politicians here.
Taking advantage of the bankruptcy of the city of Rio, slowly but surely, the militia invested in all sectors and all districts, even the wealthier ones.
My God, this neighborhood, it's finished.
Praça Seca was a bohemian area only a few years ago. This samba composer and all his family used to live in this building. They've since moved out.
Okay, so as you can see, this is my apartment, and I'm having a lot of trouble renting it out. In the past, it was very easy to rent this apartment, but really, after all the problems of generalized violence in this neighborhood, it's difficult. These communities are all under the control of the same drug traffickers, or sometimes rival groups. And that's before you even mention the presence of the militia and also the army. And there's so many shootouts, it's crazy. It makes me want to cry. Our neighborhood is deteriorated, degraded, abandoned by the government. Even its romantic side is gone, the one that inspired us to write so much music.
Se Nossa Senhora me ajudasse a conquistar o sagrado coração dessa mulher, juro com ela me casaria no coreto lá da praça, meus joelhos dobraria.
I had such a beautiful life here. I spent my childhood here, my teenage years. It's very sad to see this happen to Praça Seca.
Meus joelhos dobraria lá no alto do São José.
Our correspondent Fanny Lothaire is with us. Fanny, thank you so much for that report. The people who've campaigned for change have been silenced, and obviously the case of Marielle Franco is the most prominent one, shot dead earlier this year. I imagine that makes it even more difficult for anybody to think about speaking out.
It's extremely difficult. This code of silence is very much present. Over the course of the 3 months we were working on this report, my colleague Valeria Sacani, France 24 Spanish correspondent here, received a phone call from a policeman. He advised her to stop her investigation. That's happening to journalists, but also to politicians like Marcelo FREIXO. You saw him in that report. His work led to the arrests of more than 250 politicians, soldiers, policemen and firefighters who belonged to the militia. He received multiple death threats. For 10 years now, he's had 2 bodyguards by his side at all times. Since the death of Marielle Franco, he's also had to move house several times. His address has to be kept secret.
Let's hear more from Fanny in a moment. First, let's hear from the politician in question about the situation with these gangs.
Our investigative commission has achieved a lot, has changed public opinion about the militia. Back when we started, many people, even public figures, were only saying good things about the militia, even that it should be legalized. Even the president at the time said it should have an official role. Others would say it had a positive impact or that it is a lesser evil. Well, this was back in 2007. Nobody says that anymore.
A sense of a gang, of a militia replacing the actual state, filling the gaps where the state is failing. Fanny, for the people in your film, the people you live and work with, is there a sense among them that these gangs, these militia, can be stopped?
This has become a key topic of debate during this campaign. Brazil has its presidential elections, but also its regional elections. One candidate from the far right, Jair Bolsonaro, has said that he will do everything he can to stop the militias. This is a candidate supported by a number of police officers and soldiers, groups which themselves have been infiltrated by the militia. It's a bit of a vicious circle. Then there are the regional elections. According to the most recent report by the Electoral Commission, more than 300 municipalities will be affected by the influence of the militia, either because candidates are members themselves or because candidates have been intimidated into defending their interests. It's very hard for the Commission to measure the true extent of militia influence on the future elected representatives.
Fanny Lothaire, thank you very much indeed. You can see Fanny's film again via our website, france24.com. This is Reporters on France 24. Stay with us.